Dark Souls has been regarded as an absolute masterpiece. And I know I use that word quite often, but this is a game that's revolutionized the RPG genre, had a massive impact on the industry, and as surprising as it may sound or may not sound, has helped tens of thousands of people cope with their mental health issues, insecurities, and struggles. This is all a lot from just one game, but this game has stood the test of time. Dark Souls is a very unconventional game. I mean, really unconventional. There weren't that many games that utilized the same aspects that Dark Souls did, and as well as that, Dark Souls made sure not to make the same mistakes as most other RPG games, by taking the unconventional route or straight up ignoring features that would be in other RPG games. This one game was the start of something big, something that none of us would ever come to realize. And I am very lucky to have discovered this game when I was younger, because I wouldn't be the same man that I am today without this game. The first time I arrived at Firelink Shrine was absolutely magical. Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 1 is by far my favorite hub area in any game. The warm atmosphere, beautiful theme song, and the NPCs that come help you along your journey all make it into a incredibly welcoming place in this very hostile world.
All people come here for the same reason. To break the curse. You're no different, I should think.
That line is the epitome of what Dark Souls stands for. Hundreds of thousands of players come here to break the undead curse. You see, Dark Souls is plagued by a curse set upon humanity as the Age of Fire dwindled. You're tasked with one of the most mind-bogglingly hard things, to link the fire. This task is monumental. You have to dredge through hundreds of years of history, locations, creatures, bosses, and literal lords, and finally at the end, you have to kill a demigod who controls the entirety of the first flame. Or what's left of it. Dark Souls pits you into a world so dark that there have been thousands of quote-unquote chosen undeads that have given up, been destroyed, and gone hollow. You're not special in Dark Souls. Almost to the point of shame. In reality, Dark Souls is very dark and lonely. The world is against you at all times. Most NPCs don't even bother showing you any kindness until you give them some profit. The monsters seek you out and attempt to kill you, and the curse that's inside of you only grows stronger as you continue to doubt yourself on this seemingly impossible journey. Dark Souls 1 was my first Souls game, and through playing this game for years, the memories don't go away. Nostalgia can be a double-edged sword sometimes, as it can completely neglect all the bad aspects and memories you have. In other words, you shouldn't trust nostalgia, as your memories can be diluted down to just the positive things you remember about your experiences. But for Dark Souls, all the anger, sadness, and pain that I felt in my regular life when I played this game for the first time is something that has never left my mind. The nostalgia I've always had for this game never made the negative aspects of my life back then seem any less than what they truly were. I'm not going to go too deep into this, as I have a full video on how Dark Souls helped me. Or as the video is called, Dark Souls Saved Me. This is ultimately one of the reasons that I am so absolutely in love with this franchise. It has the capability to actually help you. I cannot stress this point enough, but if you aren't convinced that this seemingly open-ended and difficult game, that is, beyond the surface so much more, can help you, then by all means, look up anything along the lines of Dark Souls Helped Me on YouTube, and you'll find dozens, hundreds of videos on this topic, of people learning and growing through their experiences with Dark Souls. The whole idea of this all is behind the message that Dark Souls has always brought forward, which is, don't go hollow, and always keep going. Dark Souls has always been known for its bosses, and as you all know, Dark Souls 1 has fantastic bosses. I'm talking about Gwyn, Manus, Ornstein and Smo, Sif, and the best fight of them all, Artorias. I could talk about Artorias for hours on end, but I'm gonna try to sum up how I feel about this into a concise segment. Artorias' boss fight is incredible. Not because it's technically perfected to be the most innovative and incredible FromSoftware boss of all time, but it's so amazing because this is someone like you. A mere mortal who used to be in his prime, now just a shadow of his former self, corrupted by the Abyss. The lore goes so deep into Artorias' character, as the DLC for the most part was focused on him. This boss fight feels gut-wrenching. Artorias was once a hero, and to be honest he still is. He's still killing the monsters of the Abyss as you enter the arena, and the only thing you can do is free him, show mercy on his corrupted soul, and release the pain of failing, of being corrupted, of being unable to fight the Abyss. The combat feels so visceral and raw, as this is a showdown between two heroes, one who came here to save the Dusk of Ula seal, and the other is the chosen undead, you. No fancy gimmicks, no fancy magic attacks, just an immensely strong warrior, fighting a fellow mortal being, because he can't resist it. Artorias is easily in my top 5 best bosses in Dark Souls, and with full transparency, almost all bosses in Dark Souls are great. Obviously, there are some outliers and some bosses who are good bosses when you compare them to the rest of the gaming world, but who just aren't that great when compared to other Souls games. Through unique and experimental thinking, Miyazaki has created a formula for boss fights that has changed RPG games as we know it. One of the elements I want to bring to boss character design is contradiction. Contradicting elements, that's something I want to bring to boss character design. Not just fearful enemies, but something more that can be sensed from each boss character, as brought forth by Miyazaki in an interview. With all of this in mind, we still have to remember that this game is 12 years old by now, and that shows very prominently with the combat of the game. It feels quite janky when coming from Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, or Sekiro, but yet it's still very manageable, to the extent that in my opinion, Dark Souls 1's combat is better than Dark Souls 2's, and it still holds up till this day. One of the unique reasons as to why Dark Souls 1 feels so special is because of the fact that it's simplistic in its gameplay. There's no mount or horse system, no grappling or parkour, it's just simple. And that's a fantastic thing as it limits the game's possibilities of becoming too ambitious. And by no means is being ambitious a bad thing, but Dark Souls 1 doesn't oversell itself. It's the perfect mix of simplicity and complexity, as the simple gameplay contrasts the complex story and world perfectly. This shows really well with the fact that when you're just exploring the game or walking through the world, there's no music. This is a thing that I think Elden Ring got wrong, as it goes against the entire narrative of all the FromSoftware games. You're alone, with no one to help you, other than other undeads, so it would make sense for you to only hear the echoing clanking of your armor and boots. This feature enhances the music in the game, as it makes music special for boss fights and certain areas. The last thing I want to talk about with Dark Souls is its incredibly lonely atmosphere. The world might still have some NPCs left to talk to, but most are hostile towards you, trying their hardest to survive, and will absolutely kill you for the chance of robbing you. The very few friends you meet on your journey gives you a deeper connection to the few that are willing to help you, and it distinguishes you from the hostile environment around you. The world is dying and it could be saved, but if you link the fire, all it will do is keep the clock rolling, keep the cycle going, and it will never stop. You have to keep the cycle going, the world suffering, the fire crackling. But don't worry, down the line, you'll do the right thing, and fight your past self and those who linked the fire before and after you.